some sense back in the state capitol and have not been able to.
Since it's been so long since Democrats have won statewide, what is it that is different about your candidacy and about you that will allow you, do you think, to sort of break through that lock that Republicans have had?
I'm shorter than David Durhurst, that's for sure. That's one attribute that nobody else can say that they have, okay? I think it's a different viewpoint. It's a different perspective that we bring, and it has nothing to do with liberal politics or conservative or moderate. It just has to do with a can-do, will-do, and are Texans ready for change? I think people are just tired. I mean, they're just tired of the way things have been done in the legislative sessions. We were stuck on one bill, for instance, that they wanted to pass, which was the voter ID bill. And then some of the good legislation and some of the things that needed to be done got crunched in because of the adamancy of the Republicans to pass a voter ID bill, which many of us believe would have kept people from voting. We have to set our priorities, and those priorities are education, jobs, health care, the things that affect our children in Texas. Our educational programs in Texas are very high priority for me. I have a granddaughter. Where's my granddaughter here? Right here. She is a child that I want with the best education in the world. I intend to be a lieutenant governor that cares about that child and about 100,000 and 200,000 and 500,000 children in this state who don't have the opportunities that I didn't have when I was a child because of my lack of formal education when I was a young child, because I had to get out of school and work. When I had to work because we had to support my family, when my dad only earned $30 a week to support his family. We don't need that in this state. And I want that better education for that child, and I don't want her to be doubling the tuition in the campuses across this country. We need better in Texas, and I intend to do that.
In your answer to the previous question about taxes, should we take that to mean that you're opposed to an income tax?
No, you don't take it as anything. I'm working on all of the issues, and that I'm sure is going to be one of the issues that comes up. But I also know how Texans feel about that. So that also has to be a priority. As far as a priority in the thinking that nobody would not like a state income tax. I know how people in Virginia and all these other places, I've lived there for 12 years. And by the way, the 12 years that I lived in Virginia, I never stopped voting in Texas. My voter's card was always here. And I wanted to make sure that I stayed a Texan and voted a Texan during those 12 years that I lived in Washington. So I know a little bit about the state income tax and the issue that's come up in Texas all the time. And I'm willing to listen to anything that anybody has as an idea of how we can get out of the financial mess that we're in. Yes, sir. I'll come to you next.
Okay. What do you see the role of a Democratic lieutenant governor in a Republican-controlled Senate?
Well, one of the things is you have to try to build consensus for sure, because there's right now, as I understand, there's 19 Republicans and 12 Democrats. If it stays the same, the Republicans have a larger number than the Democrats. So we have had many of our state senators who have worked very hard. The Democratic state senators have worked very hard to try to get some legislation passed, to try to get their ideas put forth, and sometimes they've been able to succeed and sometimes they haven't. I believe I can bring that kind of consensus building and try to work a little bit better than what this particular lieutenant governor has done. Yes, sir.
I'm with the Rio Grande Guardian.
Yes, sir.
Of course, we've all felt the pinch of the recession here in Texas, but I'm interested in what hope can you offer working families along the border who've been hit hard by the recession?
There has to be a better tomorrow for the people in the Valley. I have heard from many friends and family, in fact, that live in the Valley, that they seem to be ignored. I don't want any Texan in the state to be ignored. And South Texas certainly needs a lot more attention than it's been getting. I hope to work with the state senators that come from that part of the state, and for them to tell me, as the lieutenant governor, what I can possibly do to help them.
Any plans on visiting the Valley soon?
I very definitely hope I get some invitations, and I'll be more than glad to come down there.
Okay.
Anyone else? Yes.
Back on that question about the Republican-controlled Senate, most of the powers of the lieutenant governor are granted by the Senate in its rules. How would you, facing a probable 1912 Republican majority, what makes you think they won't just rip the gavel away from you?
Well, I understand that there's also some things written in the Constitution as to what the rules and what the lieutenant governor can do, and I think we'll just have to come to some terms on that.
What are those?
I would have to tell you that I am slowly beginning to learn there's a lot and there's not enough. I will tell you this, yeah, I wish I had a lot more power than it says that I would have. But I think what we have to do is, there's 6 months, basically, about 6 months that you have to work in a state legislative session. Everybody wants to pass their bills. Everybody wants to make sure that they have the right amount of number to pass their legislation. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can look at everybody's legislation and get all the legislation passed. And the lieutenant governor, I think, can play a major factor in that, especially if I don't know that I have not already exhibited some skills at bringing sides together, whether it be labor or management or issues that have to do with labor and management issues. I've brought those together, and I feel very comfortable that I can do that as the lieutenant governor. Anyone else?
You have
Yes,
on Wikipedia, there's a biography of you that says it's unclear where you were born, where you were raised, and how many brothers and sisters you had. I'm just curious, since we're going to be writing about you.
Okay. I'll set the record straight. I am the fourth child of Felipe and Genoveva Chavez. My mother's maiden name was Ursula. My two sisters, two of my older sisters, no, in fact, my three older sisters were born in the Lockhart area. The sister right next to me died in birth. I was the third child. I was delivered in the small town of Lorenzo, Texas. I have to assume it was either a midwife or a doctor who did not file my paperwork. And my brothers and sisters all below me have their birth certificates. I don't know why I was the only one who didn't. My two older sisters received their birth certificates. I was the only one that did not. But I was the third living child of my parents, and was born and raised in the Lubbock, Idalou, and Lorenzo area.
And how many total siblings did you have?
Total of 8. 7 living now. One has passed away. My sister Mary passed away about 3 years ago. And she lived here in Austin. I have family also from here that lives in Austin. A sister, 2 sisters, and 2 brothers. I have a brother that lives in Lubbock, and then I'm the only one that lives in San Antonio.
And your birthday, please?
My birthday magically is 8/3/44, so I'm officially 65 and a half years old. I don't look it, do I? I wish you would lie a little at least. Any other questions?
Yeah, would you talk a little bit more about the voter ID bill, which would put you in conflict with majority of the Republican senators, I assume, if you oppose that?
You're putting restrictions on people to register to vote. My God, we should be out there encouraging people any way that we can to exercise their right to vote. When you start putting limitations to people, when you start trying to get them to identify themselves, when you start trying to put all of these obstacles in their way, you're almost telling them that they're not the kind of people you want to vote. By disproportionate numbers, you're going to find that the elderly, people of color, are going to find it a little bit more burdensome, and they will say, you know what, it's too much trouble, I don't want to do it. I think we should be making it as easy as possible for citizens of this great state of Texas to be free to vote and not have any obstacles placed before them. Voter ID does that. I believe there was a hand raised in the back. Yeah. I will be more than glad to do any personal one-on-ones with any of you that you would like to do, and I'm here for any questions that you might have. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Mr. Ballard?
All right, Harry.
Doing good.
I'm good. How are you, Dave? I'm well. Happy New Year.